this way, but we're in. So let's refresh here. I go now. I'm gonna go ahead and change stuff. Here's everybody. Hope you're glad to be in the room, or I'm glad to be in the room. But me and Shop Mama here. The screen is different because I couldn't figure out how to change it. I know what horizontal and vertical are, but it didn't make a difference. Okay, let's see if we're in the room. If it's working. It's a little crooked too. So, all right. So we'll see what's happening.
Faye said hi.
Okay. There's a chicken chair. Anybody ever seen a chicken chair before? All right. So, hello everybody. Hi Faye. Shop Mom is here. Got a little bit of issues. I can move a little bit over. Actually,
yeah, it's probably easier to move the table and the
yeah,
chair than
I
the
don't.
camera at this point.
We don't normally go horizontal. We go vertical. Stop it,
That
people.
is vertical.
We go vertical, horizontal. I don't know. We go sideways. That's what it is.
That's horizontal.
Yeah, we go. That's horizontal, but it didn't work. I clicked it in over and over again, so I changed it.
And you've been
So,
having that kind of day.
It's been that kind of day for everybody. So anyway, we're here. I'm gonna stop complaining. Hey, Lawnmower, Shop Mom's here. Bob Miller's here. Got 8 people. It says are here. So the rest of the other 4 people, whatever, haven't said hi. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. But we're gonna.
Well, let's just get on to book club because this was really good reading this time. I don't know if everybody kept up with the reading. I know Bob Miller did because we can always count on Bob Miller, but it was really good reading.
Yes, it was a lot of reading. So we're going to go ahead and get along with a book club and just see what we can do. It was a lot of reading. It was very interesting. The Mighty Bull, Indy. So he's still at Indy. So Smokey's at Indy. It's
and what was the Mighty Bull?
The Mighty
tree.
Bull was
the tree.
The tree.
It's a tree around the turn. It's the Mighty Bull.
That he hit the tree. Yes, I thought the Mighty Bull was the driver, the one that's in charge. But
no.
What happened is the driver flips the car. So he's out once again at Indy. And then while this is happening, Fireball Roberts has an accident at Daytona. So, or at Charleston, not at Daytona. So, okay. Charleston. So he has to leave and he has to go see Fireball. And so that's where we're at the beginning. Y'all with me or not? I'm not even with me here. But so he leaves Indy. He goes to see Fireball. Not very good. Gets burnt really bad. Gets burnt down under, which is the worst place you can get burnt if you're Smokey. So he knew it wasn't going to be good. So a week later, Fireball passes. So Smokey wasn't there. A month later. Was it a month later?
A month later that he died.
So thanks, Shop Mom, for helping me out here. So a lot of inappropriate stuff indeed. Yes. So that's what Faye is saying. There's a lot. There's a lot of that in this section. But just gonna go. It's a lot to read. So I don't know if y'all have been reading or not. But if not, we'll just kind of condense it down and then maybe talk about the interesting points that I kind of felt for the first time. But I'm gonna go on with the notes that I have, just because until we get more people in the room. So George Hurst is the one that was helping the money sponsoring for these Indy cars. So a lot of inappropriate reading. He actually ends up taking his life. So
it wasn't an appropriate reading unless you had his child in the room.
Well, we did have a great granddaughter in the room that we had to ask to go read in her room, not this book. So that it was a lot. It most definitely was a lot. Let me see on my notes. We talk a lot about the rules we're changing, and it was getting harder and harder, and it cost more and more to go racing. And we know that for the most part, he was funded it himself. He was getting money, and here we even see how that money changed hands and how hard it was to get money. And Goodyear and Firestone didn't want to give you any money until right there at the end. They knew that you were going to make Indy. But so it was really a tough game. And early on, it was, $10,000 to run their tires. And he was more, which I'm really liking. This is where I kind of, the part that I like more than I like Indy. That's not a problem. But he was really deep into alternative energies, and he brings that up here repeatedly.
Although that doesn't really say much because he goes back and forth a lot through these books.
It's a tough read. I'm trying to keep notes of what year this is, and then we're in 67, we're in 80, we're just
we didn't get
to 80. We're at 67, and then we're 70.
We get to 71.
71. So and it's going back and forth. So I'm trying to keep track, but he'll bring up a part that happened in 1968.
And he did talk about keeping a log, keeping a diary.
Oh, and I didn't have that.
But he did that during World War II, and then his wife found it. And that created issues because of his service in Africa.
So did Bob or anybody who's reading with this advice from Smokey? Because afterwards it's hard to remember all these things. So keep a diary. Keep a diary so that you know what race you're at, who you're at, who you talk to. Keep a diary. Backfired on him a little bit because his wife found the diary. And if you've been in in book club with us, there's a lot of stuff going on. That might have been why Hearst took his life.
Well, right. Well, that was after the other driver came in. We don't have to get into all that.
We don't have to. Yes, we don't speculate. Read the book. But it was keep a diary. But then
Bob Miller says put it in a safety deposit box.
And put it in a safety deposit box.
That's
exactly.
Right. That was his advice.
Thanks, Bob, and help out, Bob, because you can
Bob,
tell.
We don't have Faye. Help out, Bob.
Yeah, we don't have Faye here in the studio, so help out. Most definitely. It was a lot of reading. It's a lot of reading, but good reading. And I have just notes that I just took about the cubic inch, the size. I was really
cheating went on. He said.
I was really impressed. Yes, and a lot of cheating did go on. That when Ford wanted to race, to help on the Indy program, he got 2 engines. He got a car and he got 2 engines, and I think it's amazing that Ford. And this is the same with Chevy, the same with other manufacturers. What does Smokey do? Because of course he's going to do this. He puts it on the dyno, and it's low on power. So it's low on power. He works on the cylinder heads. He works on the ports, and he works on the camshafts.
Took some weight off.
And took some maybe off the car, but on the engine he did the ports and the camshafts. He got 40 horsepower out of it. That's from a manufacturer. If you're an Indy, 1 horsepower costs millions of dollars, and it's not like they don't know what they're doing. So to pick up, this is back in the day, but to pick up 40 horsepower, I thought was very, very impressive. And the days were from 7:30 to 1:30 in the morning. So
and sometimes all night.
Yes, and that was the interesting part of that. I'm going just by my recollection as opposed to my notes, but Goodyear. So he's working with Goodyear, he's working with Ford. When that's done, Goodyear doesn't want him the next year, because if you don't win, if something happens, they want to, they want you on the track. But so he wasn't, going to go on the next year with Goodyear with some of the money. But Goodyear wanted to borrow the car. Can we borrow the car?
Oh, and can I borrow the engine?
And then can we borrow some engines? So Smokey, yeah, sure. He loans the car to Goodyear, even though they're not going to sponsor him. And I don't know how many cars Smokey has lost, but so he gives loans the car to Goodyear. Then Goodyear asks for engines, loans them the engines. Never to this day has he got the engines back. He even writes that one day maybe he'll get the car back because he had the title for the VIN numbers of that Indy car.
Well, he also discusses whether it's illegal to sell a car with forged documents.
Yes, so they had to be forged documents because it was Smokey's car, and the car is in a museum.
The car changed hands.
Yeah, the car changed hands,
and it is in a museum, and it's really dusty.
And it's really, so it did make it to a museum, but
you're kind of jumping all over the place.
I am. Where should we go from here? To take a break and let somebody put in the safe deposit box the last of Bob Miller's.
We're not having a lot of interaction, maybe it's because we're missing Faye.
Okay.
But the fact of the matter is, one of the things that we did find really interesting in all of this, remember, you put it in your notes.
Oh, I want to tell you, yeah, so let's go with Chop Mom finds interesting. Let's see if it's the same thing. Okay, so what I found interesting was that the more you read, every time, I'm not going to say it's like the Bible. Every time you read it, you get a different message. But the more that you read it, you learn some more stuff. I totally missed this in all of everything else, probably because I thought I knew, or I was pleased that he was taking a Chevrolet V8 pushrod motor to Indy. So I thought it made perfect sense. I mean, he worked with Chevrolet, worked with Ford. I mean, and he's taking a small block Chevy, a pushrod motor to Indy. Hi, Ed. So now we know why. Smokey was way beyond. He's playing multi-lever chess when I'm here over there checkers. He was trying to save the world. He was trying to save Indy. He was trying to save NASCAR. If you know, this is, I guess, from the beginning, he was trying to save NASCAR, and not just wanted to win during the race, but to save NASCAR themselves. Then he was trying to save Indy. Well, Indy, if you're reading it here, it got more and more expensive. I mean, it was, you needed tons of money. Penske came in and dumped tons of money in, and then all of a sudden, nobody could go to Indy on a small budget. Not anymore. Okay. So he was trying to save Indy. So he takes a small block Chevy that he was working with Chevrolet for the 302 for Trans Am Racing, and he had the 302s and everything. So he used that as a platform. Thought that'd be a great platform, and he made it a smaller cubic inch motor. And he was trying to build an Indy motor for $30,000, if I'm correct, right?
Right.
So
he didn't think it should cost more than $80,000 to go to Indy.
So it shouldn't cost more than $80 to go to Indy. That's complete, car and everything. So he wanted a package of an engine that was around $30,000. That was affordable. You could buy one, two, and actually go to Indy. So he was trying to save Indy. It got too expensive. The foreign manufacturers got involved in Indy.
The greenies, he called them.
The greens?
The greenies.
The greenies. Okay, so
everybody with a green card.
Everybody with a green card.
It was not an American race anymore.
Yes, like I said before, and we read it in another chapter. Show me your green card. He just thought that it was America's race. It wasn't for the foreigners. Not even like foreigners, but Indy. He's trying to save Indy. Okay, so in trying to save Indy, he thought that Americans need to get connected to the driver. They need to know the driver. They need, America. Like to know the history and where he was born, where he's doing driving. They need to be connected to the manufacturer. What kind of cars? Some people like Chevy, some people like Ford. Some, I'm sure you like Chrysler to get involved. So he thought that Indy needs to connect. They need to connect to Americans. So, like I said, Americans, they follow baseball. They follow all kinds of sports. They collect cards. They follow a person in sports. So he thought the same way with Indy. Americans want to follow a driver. They want to know about him, where he lives. So that's kind of the point. He was trying to save Indy. That's why he took a small block Chevy pushrod motor, not because what I thought that, it was awesome. He had a Chevy and he's going to take a Chevy to Indy. But that's why he took a Chevy, and that's what I got out of this book.
Bob Miller says, Smokey really laments the big money and the loss of free help, the Gophers. But of course, a lot of those Gophers were very talented people, and they devoted themselves to it. And as it became more of a profession, and they had all of these people who were on payroll, it made it harder and harder for the little guy to participate.
Well, peace and assembly, Grace. Peace and assembly.
Brian has to go.
Yeah, he has to go. But Brian, thank you.
Thanks for stopping by, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by. So there's why he took a small block to Indy. There's just so much more, but I don't know if we're losing people, if people are getting just tired,
well,
or
I don't know that you're losing people, but you do have a tendency to go all over the place.
Yes, well, that was my big, another one. That was one of my first ones of why he was trying to save Indy, plain and simple. Okay.
Well, he did have a list of things. He had 5 things: A, B, C, D, and E. Mm-hmm. Did you write those?
I did, and it's further down. We can move further. The car. Do we know in 1967 what he called the car? That was going to be a question for the book reader. Did anybody know what his 1967 car? What was the name and why? So we'll wait to see if anybody knows that one. Ralph Johnson comes up a lot more now.
Yeah.
In the fuel stuff. Interesting. The Indy cars, Smokey found that the Bendix fuel injection wasn't very good. So that was kind of one of the problems of making a lot of power. Early on, him and Ralph used a twin-turboed small block Chevy with a single 4-barrel Holly. And I like where he mentions that they were having issues with that. And we have to go into, I don't think we've even tapped into Ralph Johnson, came from Chevrolet, went to work at, I believe, Rochester, then he went to go work at Holly, and he actually invented the 4150 Holly race car in Smokey's shop as a working with Holly, but renting Smokey's shop. Interesting. One of the things that was the problem, and it still is to anybody who uses a Holly, the earlier Hollies or the street level Hollies have a side bowl. Well, if you're going to do turns, a side bowl doesn't work very well.
How about fast turns?
Yeah.
Does it work any better?
No. So this basically means you have a bowl of fuel and the float hung on the side. So if it turned one way, all the fuel would slosh over, the float would drop and flood the carburetor as soon as it straightened out. If it went the other way, the float would go the other way. So that's the early Holly carburetor that they had off a 4-barrel, better than anything else before. But I know that the race Holly that was produced afterwards has a center hung bowl. So the float hangs right off the center. You can do left and right hand turns. So I know where they already were seeing problems with the bowl, but that's Ralph Johnson. So there was problems with fuel injection, problems. He actually had to borrow just the castings of a fuel injection.
Yes, and that was very interesting. But one of the, it just came back to me right now. One of the things that was really interesting. Remember, they were racing, they were out, and who asked him? Mickey Thompson asked him, "Would you be back?" Oh, yes, that was because he wouldn't let him pass.
Oh!
He wouldn't let him pass, and he said, "Would you be back in if you had a radiator, the hose clamp?"
The hose clamp. So Leonard, wasn't it Leonard? So was driving the car, and this is a little bit further forward. Whoever was reading, they're at Indy. The car's actually doing really well, and he's just driving it really well. Comes towards the end, and so Smokey says, he even says, this is his fault. This is on him. So Mario Andretti, right? Mario Andretti had problems with his gearing in his rear end,
and Smokey went to help him.
And so
and none of them matched.
Yes, and after working for all day and stuff on his car
until 3 in the morning,
then they ask for help. Mario comes and asks if they can help. They have gear sets for the car. None of them matched. So they worked, and they couldn't get a good match on the gear set, the ring and pinion. So they asked Smokey, "Can you come over?" After 3 in the morning, whatever, he goes over to their camp, and he helps and does the best he can.
But he says none of them are a perfect match.
Yes, none of them are a perfect match. You don't have a good set. They're not matching right. But he made, he tried them all. Can you imagine, if you ever done a rear end, it's hours setting up the ring and pinion. Over and over again, a bunch of different ring and pinions, and he got the best match. And then he said, it will work as long as you don't let off. So you need to keep the ring and pinion, instead of having play, don't let it slop back and forth. Just keep it loaded all the time. So hit the brakes, but still keep a little gas on. So you're going to have to play the brake and the gas. You're going to be on the brake a lot more because you don't want to get it to where it starts hitting back and forth. And Mario Andretti actually figured it out and made it work. It probably, like Smokey says, made a terrible noise behind him. The ring and pinion at the end of the race, we end up finding out that it chewed itself up and almost blew up, but it finished. Okay, so he helps him get to racing. It's at the end of the race. Guess who the 1 and 2 car is? So Mario Andretti's, Smokey's car, and Leonard, right?
Yeah. Wanted to pass.
Leonard wanted to pass. Back then, they just had signs. And he wanted to pass. He kept on pointing at. He wanted to get in front of Mario Andretti, and he could have easily. Smokey was back, wait, not your turn. Just hang in there. Well, what happened? Somebody else hit the wall. Parts went flying everywhere. A stat hose clamp on the cleanup. They left a hose clamp on the track. Mario Andretti comes because he's right in front of Smokey's car, and picks up the hose clamp and throws it, not intentionally, the tire picks it up, lifts it up, tosses it, and here comes Smokey's car. It goes right into the radiator and takes out the radiator. So if he would have listened to the driver and passed, he would that'd have been it. This would have.
He would have won.
Yes, he would have won, and this was Smokey's fault. He helped Mario Andretti, and then he didn't let him pass. He didn't let him pass Mario Andretti, so the stuff got the radiator. Now, an amazing thing, they actually pulled into the pits. And
driver gets unsuited. He goes for an interview, and then what happens? Mickey Thompson comes to Smokey and says, "Smoke, if you have a radiator, would you be able to finish the race?" So he runs, breaks into Gurley's garage, steals the radiator. They swap it out. They get the driver back, get him suited up, and come back and still finish the race in sixth place.
And he
laps him.
He laps Mario Andretti 7 times in 36 laps. He puts the radiator for another car, puts it in. The engine's got to be hot. I mean, does all of this in time to get the driver to get suited back up, get back in the car, get back out there. And like I said, he lapped Mario Andretti 7 times. So they had a faster car. So who knows what would have happened. And Smokey felt bad about that. Can y'all hear Shop Mom good, better, maybe, kind of? I hope so, because she's helped me out a lot. So I don't want to repeat what she says. If I'm hoping that y'all can hear Shop Mom. So please let us know.
Yeah, because, I don't ever really take this much of a role, but in the absence of our good friend Faye, we're just trying to keep a little bit of life going in this stream. Kay says he can hear Shop Mom.
Awesome.
Okay.
So
good. Besides Bob Miller, has anybody else undertaken the reading?
Yes,
it's good.
It is good.
It really is good.
I can't even keep up with enough notes because there's so much, and Smokey just goes all over the place. So you got to pay attention. You got to pay attention. Another little nugget that I think it came out. How good of a driver Dan Gurney was, but the 1970. I believe he was helping John DeLorean out, and they were working on a rear-engine Corvette. Mm-hmm. So just a little nugget, and that comes up more than once of the rear-engine Corvette. So Knudsen, I think is how you pronounce it, right? That's the head of.
I believe that the K is silent, but I never knew the man, so.
Knucklehead is what I used to say because I can't read what's darn, but. He comes up a lot as well. He was the head of Chevrolet, then he went to Ford, then he ended up at White. Why I think it's important here is just because here we hear him talk about the hot vapor engine, which is like the second nugget or second, like the first one, why he took a Chevy to Indy. Now we're finally, I just want to just get to the point of the hot vapor engine. The whole time there's a 3-book set, and yes, it's great. I love everything about it. But I really, when I first got into this, I wanted to just get into the hot vapor engine. So, and when did he start working? He started working way before, but he mentions here 1966. 1966, when he was working on the hot vapor engine, when they called him to go help on an Indy car. That was one of the first things that he brought up.
He actually, because we've read this in other books, he actually started in the 50s on the hot vapor cycle engine.
Yes, and Ralph Johnson
was always into alternative energies.
Alternative energy. And Ralph Johnson, let's not take away credit from Ralph Johnson. Like I said, he invented the race Hawley in Smokey's shop, and the reason he could do it there and not at Hawley was because Smokey had the best flow bench and the best dyno that could do these things, and they could actually work on the carb and within a few hours have it on a dyno, as opposed to even Hawley didn't have those kind of facilities. So, but Ralph Johnson started when he was a young kid at the GM. I think GM may have even sent him to college, and it was at the basement in the engineering and the dyno room, and that's what Ralph Johnson would do. So he's a fuel guru, but in his lunchtime, he was working on vaporizing fuel. So it's not in this chapter, but so maybe I don't even go there. We're probably going to come up to it later. But the Chevy and the Corvette had a 6-cylinder. That's what was going in it. They were doing a multi-carb 6-cylinder, and that's what he was testing. It really wasn't very good. So Ralph, in his lunch hour, started building a hot vapor 6-cylinder. Well, when GM, or not GM, but the engineers came down to evaluate their engine, the carbureted, multi-carbureted 6-cylinder, it just wasn't very impressive. And Ralph says, I've been working on this. Do you want to check this out? So there must have been more than one dyno. and he shows GM the 6-cylinder with vaporized fuel, and it blew away the multi-carb 6-cylinder. That ended the 6-cylinder in the Corvette. So that's just extra history. I don't know. I can't just stop with the hot vapor stuff. Is where I can go.
Okay, so Bill Waller is saying it was pretty cool to touch it. He sent pictures of the Indy motor sitting in the floor at the Speedway Museum in Nebraska. And he's read the books multiple times. Better man than me.
Yes. Well, awesome. And it's, yes, like every time you read it, you get something, every time you read it, a little bit more out of it. And in this time that they were doing the Indy stuff and using a carburetor, and he thought he would put some fuel before the turbine, you know, the entry level, the entry of the turbocharger, and then add fuel at the manifold. But in one of the versions that had a big haulie in between these two turbos, and it went through there, it was really hard to get it tuned. It was really, really, really hard. So they went through a lot of pistons.
So Bill Waller says the book said that he had the block polished like a mirror to reduce weight. I was surprised that I thought he could have ground it down more. But remember, there were limitations with technology back then that we don't have
and
now.
And he's talking about the V8 Indy motor, which I wish I could have bought.
Well, he got to touch it.
I know it's that gold beauty. I've looked at it so many times from every different angle, and I wish that motor belongs to me. No, it doesn't belong to me. I would love to have the motor, but it doesn't. It doesn't. That's just me.
Now, Kay also has an observation that it's amazing that Chevy nearly put the hot vapor engine in the S10 in the early '80s. The book is so full of almost moments.
Okay, I will. Oh, we're gonna go back to caves. We're gonna. Wow. Okay, you're right, and I don't know if Feve's still here or not, but we were looking over the two. Well, I have several hot vapor engines, so we'll get into what I was gonna. Oh, the block. To go to Indy, V8 Chevy was a lot heavier. It's cast iron. It's a lot heavier than the aluminum Offies and the Miller engines, which are, as Smokey says, they're almost the same engine. But Indy was a little lax, even though they're strict on all the rules, because they kind of like the idea of Smokey was trying to build a V8 that, like I said, to keep the cost down. So they were on board with that. They didn't. So they kind of helped a little bit by not, checking as many things. But in one of the pictures here, and it comes up all the time, and I look at it all the time. Smokey's sitting there with his black glasses. He's young, and the cylinder heads are off of the Indy motor. It's a Chevy small block with the studs. You can see them. Interesting nugget. You got to pull the heads off for inspection. So when you're going to get teched, pull the heads off, because they wanted to measure the bore and the stroke. I mean,
but they just handed you the mic.
Yeah.
So you could just tell them whatever you wanted.
Yes, but can you imagine?
They're not checking it for
I built an engine and I don't want to ever work on it again. I mean, I want to build it and let it just, the compressed air engine went 3 years, and we finally got into it to freshen it up, and it was such a new.
You could have gone back in with the same bearings.
We could have gone back to the same bearings, same gasket, everything else. That's a little oddity. I want an engine back in every year, every off season, when the season's over, to freshen it up. That's for racing stuff. But can you imagine? You have an engine that's doing great on the dyno, doing everything else. You get there, you may even you got to pull it apart. And that's the same thing with NHRA Superstock racing. That's why it's like I don't have the time and the energy to pull stuff apart. If you ever worked on a turbo car, the exhaust manifolds, the turbochargers, there's tubes everywhere. So to pull the heads off, let me pull the heads off so I can mic the bore. It's a lot easier said than done. And they were lenient. He did have to take that block, because remember he was started off with a 302 Chevy, a small block Chevy, and he put it on the Bridgeport mill, and he just cut on it, and he took off a lot of weight off of it.
Yes.
Yeah. So. But that's an amazing engine. And how many pistons? So he lost a lot of pistons because the fuel wasn't right. He ran lean pistons. He even lost a lot of turbochargers. I have a picture. It's in his book, and it's a shelf, and it's all these turbochargers on the shelf. And I'm thinking, well, he tested a bunch of them to get the right one, sure, but you're going through a lot of turbos until they got the fuel right. So in the pistons, I've been doing some shorts, some YouTube shorts. And in fact, It was just shared by
Engine Labs.
Engine Labs just did article on it or whatever you may want to
Yeah,
say.
it was an article.
It was an article
where they talked to other experts.
Yes.
About whether Smokey's tricks are relevant today.
And they did this because of my shorts. So I've been showing Smokey's pistons.
Because of your shorts?
My shorts. You don't want to see my shorts, so stop it. Shop, Mom, look at that. She talking about my shorts. Now what am I talking about? All right, we're gonna. Okay, happy Friday, everybody. So
Uncle Fraser says he loves your piston shorts.
my piston shorts. So I'm showing you these pistons, and one of the set that I pulled out is the 1975 Indy pistons, and some of the earlier pistons. So I had all these comments. In fact, I stopped for about a week. I stopped for a while. I checked out. I'll be honest. I checked out because I simply say, on one of them, this is how Smokey balanced his Chevy Indy piston. I think it's plain simple. This is how Smokey balanced Chevy. And then somebody comments back, well, you're not showing me how to balance it. If you'd have showed me how, him balancing it, I would have believed it. And do you know who Smokey was? He's dead. I mean, did I write something was I misleading? I wasn't trying to fish for. This is how he balanced his Indy motor. And then, oh my God, those heavier slugs. Nobody would ever. Back in the day, the TRW forged piston was what you used. I have other boxes to some of his newer exotic pistons and some of his other engines, but this is the one. And what I say about Smokey is he wrote a note for me for forever. He wrote notes on every box. He kept the diary. So he kept the diary on every box. You can't just go, what's in it in this box? He wrote on it. So we have the 1975. Now we're reading here, and what do we get? I'm like, I'm going to jump a little bit because, unless the only one's going to stop me is Bob Miller or Shop Mom, is he was working on vaporizing fuel for an Indy car. Well, one of the pistons, it even talks about high swirl. So he wanted
the high squirrel one?
The high squirrel one, yeah. I think I did. I didn't
autocorrect
put it to high squirrel. Yes. High squirrel pistons, and I left it like that because. But anyway, so he was working on hot vapor Indy motor. Fast forward to the modern days, Honda, and I believe Honda won an Indy race with a hot vapor engine. So, but Smokey was doing it back then. He was doing it back then. So he was swirling fuel. So anyway, I'm showing these pistons, and oh my God, you never take metal out of there. I'm showing you where Smokey took metal out of the bottom. So then I had to do a rebuttal video on that one and saying, look, this is a different time back then. And back then, pistons were off 5-10 grams. I mean, it was quite a bit. Now, a modern piston, like a mall piston, you're done. You shouldn't have to touch it. You shouldn't have to touch it. Anything that I can generally used to be able to juggle around the piston pins and the pistons, lighter pin, heavier piston. They're getting so good. I can weigh a whole set of pins, and there's no difference in the pins. I mean, everything nowadays is CNC. Technology's gone a long way, but back then it was different. You would never take them apart where he did. I mean, they're really ragging on it, and I'm like, look, understand, there is a balance, and then there's a balancing pad for that. I have to do a rebuttal video, show the piston. Look at the balancing pad. It's almost all the way gone, and he still needs to remove more weight. I'm not saying they removed all the weight just to balance the pistons. He was probably lightening the piston as well. And when I learned how to balance engines from Tom Hamilton in San Antonio, he showed me how we could go in underneath the pin and by hand, yes, you can put a Bridgeport mill and you can put a fly cutter. And somebody says, oh, he did it with a fly cutter. Yeah, we all know how to do that. I'm like, look at it by hand. These are done by hand. These weren't done with the fly cutter. So I just got tired
you get very flustered.
I get a lot of fluster. I'm getting flustered now?
Yeah, you get very flustered.
Okay.
Now, Bill Miller
Right.
has, although I will say Occam's razor does remember the famous high squirrel pistons. Bill Miller says, talk about the Honda, because Smokey does say something about they won a race using his hot vapor tech. I studied everything I could find on F1 Honda engines trying to find it.
and I've only once maybe read something. We need to do some research. So that's all. It's going to be our thing to find more on Honda's F1 engine. So it's the F1 engine instead of an Indy motor. But you're right. I've the first I heard about it was in the book, but it has come up somewhere else about vaporizing fuel, and it was Honda. So we'll research that. We will, because that's it. I mean, it's amazing because Smokey did say in his books this technology could be across the board used on everything, and for the naysayers to say it doesn't work. Well, why would Honda do F1? Why would Smokey and everybody? This is another thing that really got me really riled up. Smokey.
It doesn't take much to get him riled
yeah,
up.
Yeah, you talk bad about Smokey, and we're gonna, if you have a legit, question, or wow, that doesn't make sense,
or observation.
Observation. Hey, right. I'm here to. Right. I may learn something from somebody asking a question. But just to say, I'm not going to believe anything because he was a cheater. Well, everything that we're reading, no, he wasn't a cheater unless you talk about women. There's a few times, and that those particular instances, everybody was doing what he did. So the changing the camshaft out of a NASCAR motor in front of everybody, it's almost like Barnum and Bailey. Everybody has to come to the tent and watch you take apart a motor, and but he saw somebody else doing that, so he did it. So there's a few things. The gas tank thing with the size of the fuel line, it didn't say that the fuel line there was no limitations on what size fuel line. And you're going to win a race if you're not in the pits adding fuel. Because Smokey was way ahead of his time about not just the engine, the complete package, the driver, the car, the tires,
the
chassis, everything. So
he does say that the best drivers are the ones who spend 80 hours a week learning everything about the car. Yes, and they could tell. He knew because the driver could tell you about the car, which is Smokey loved that because he could fix what But if you just say I'm too scared of the car, he didn't want you in the car. You see what Occam Razor says? Toyota came out with a hot vapor engine recently, fuel injected but with a vapor chamber. Wow, Faye, find me some info on Toyota. So, if it doesn't work, why are people using it? That's a thing. I'm gonna just go because it reminds me of when I met Shop Mom. So 1971, alternative energy. He's back, and he's always in alternative energy. Did not meet you in 71. What were you like? No. I'm saying he's saying here back in alternative energy. Then after that, he's working with Donnie Allison and the Coyote engine. So why does that matter or anything? When I met Shop Mom, we were at College Station. It was a race. I was the engine builder and the tuner. So I was there. And lo and behold, I'm walking the pits and seeing all the different cars. There's this Buick, V6 Buick. And we know Smokey had a lot to do with the V6 Buick. So got to figure out how much he had to do with that. But Buick wanted Smokey to actually develop the Buick V6. Remember, it was odd fire. Then it was even fire, that Smokey unit. So all of the V6 technology that made it what it is was Smokey unit. I don't care what it. Go ahead and want to say, show me you're different, or whatever. I don't care. So why does it matter? Well, there in the pits is this beautiful car with a V6. We all got V8s. Everybody there has a V8. So the only V6 there is Donnie Allison Jr.'s car, and he's not there. So there's people there to unload it. They did everything. They warmed it up in a little while. It was neat to go by there when they were warming it up in the morning. But anyway, here comes a helicopter flying in, lands. He gets out. It gets in the car, qualifies. I don't know where he goes, but he's there racing in the race that we're in. So that I thought was, man, it's kind of neat. The car owner changed the carburetor, not the carburetor that we had. Changed the carburetor at night when all the festivities are going on because he thought that a different carb was going to make him faster. And actually, the carb we had was going to make the car as fast as we could. I'll be totally honest with you.
he didn't have money to even be there. So the engine was extremely illegal. Extremely illegal. So you could not run. He even had on the hood a 331. It wasn't a 331 cubic inch motor because you weigh the car by the size of the cubic inch. They give you different brakes. Well, in the rules, you have to have a small CFM carburetor. That's the biggest you could run. Everybody has to run. I don't know if it was an 850, 900 CFM. It was an outlaw motor essentially. Super high compression, big cubic inch, the biggest carburetor. I mean, this thing was just, on kill. The Lozano brothers were right across from us, and they actually walked over to our pit, told Jack, the car owner, dang, you brought an engine to the race. Anyway, this thing was a beast. I told the driver, do not come in faster than 5th place. There's 30, 40 cars here. There's people with 18-wheelers. There's people with so much money. We shouldn't even be here. We shouldn't be here. But got you here, got you more power because you can't drive with the darn. And we qualified. Not only we qualified, we actually qualified. I think even we qualified real good in the pack. Real good in the pack. And I said, as long as you don't do something stupid, they're never going to tear you down. Don't go passing everybody like every turn. Hang with them, have fun, stay 5th and back, enjoy the race, have a good time. We'll have a great weekend. We qualified, everything's great. We shut down for the night, and sometime between then and the morning, they changed the carburetor to a legal carburetor. The engine is illegal, but they changed to a legal carburetor, and it's like, it's not going to work. We don't have enough carburation. We have a high compression motor, big cubic inch. It ain't going to work. Don't worry about it, Dan. You don't worry about it. We may do good, and they're going to tear us down. The first thing they're going to do is check the carburetor. And it's like, you ain't going to do good, dude. Anyway, so they're going to do that. I get a little flustered, don't I, sometimes?
You do get a little flustered sometimes.
I'm done, and I went through the tunnel, through the stands to go sit and watch this thing just destroy itself, essentially. And that's when I met Shop Mom. So see, a good thing can still be half full, half empty kind of thing. We finished further in laps than Donnie Allison Jr. did, which I thought was a great accomplishment for us, even though we're illegal like all get out. And he was booking, but he had engine problems and didn't finish the race. We went a couple more laps than he did, and it was really quick early on because on a long straightaway, and he's trying to just pass everywhere in the world, it leaned out and took out a piston, and it was gone. So, but we did finish further. I don't want to say in points or anything. We did more laps than Donnie Allison Jr. There you go.
So really the whole point of that story is it takes a whole team to be a successful race team. You can't just be the driver calling the shots. You need to listen to the guy who built the engine. The guy who built the engine needs to know what the driver's going to do. It does take a whole team.
Oh yeah, and there's ways. Like I said, a lot of people I say, look, if you ain't got the money to race that class, drop down a class that you can't afford, or be a little creative. My rule: don't. If you hang in 5th place every race, if throughout the season you finish 5th every time, maybe even 4th sometimes,
it's about the points. It's about the points.
I guarantee you at the end of the season, you're going to be in the points race. And
that's what matters.
Yes.
Going the long haul.
And you got sponsors, you got a restaurant on your car or somebody. They want to see people race. They don't want to see, on the trailer.
Let's go back to the book. We can go back to the book, but the thing that you didn't say about that particular driver was he had a set on him. And I'm not talking about tires, people. He had his wife and his girlfriend in 2 different rooms at the same motel. Call me silly, but I was like, wow. Yes, I've never seen anything like this.
If you've ever been
then I read about Smokey.
If you've ever been to circle track racing, a lot of stuff happens at night, and a lot of stuff happens in the hotel rooms. And like Shama was saying, he had his wife, in this room, and his girlfriend in this room, right across from each other. His kids.
All his kids there.
Yeah, all his kids there, and
Yeah.
I never even got my distributor. I want my distributor back too.
Probably not here. So
no.
Bill Waller says Smokey liked the mind games of racing, but he was truly concerned about energy and would not have lied about his discoveries.
Yes.
And that's an excellent way to bring us back to the conversation.
Yes.
Bill. Thank you.
Alternative
energy sources were always a passion of his.
Ecuador, oil, alternative energies. He had solar panels in his shop in Daytona Beach and a wind generator way before anybody was even talking about solar panels and a wind generator. So alternative fuels, alternative energy comes up a lot in these chapters that we read. So like I said, I just, maybe from now on, unless somebody says different, maybe we just stay on the hot vapor engine. It's up to me. That's all I would stay with. But we'll let you all decide that. But alternative energy does come up a lot. Knucklehead. The reason I bring up Knucklehead because when he went to White after Chevrolet, Ford, then he went to White, which is a big truck company. They made a lot of trucks. He was working on their alternative energy program, and Chevrolet had an alternative energy program.
Right.
That Smokey was working with Chevrolet on. Did you know that Chevrolet had an alternative energy program? So then he working out on a tank on a boat or something for Chevrolet. But
Bill Waller
Bill,
says it sounded like he did experiments on methane too. He did a lot. He used, well, because he worked with farmers, so he was using all of the fuel sources that they had available to them as well.
And on one part he says he was running behind because he wasn't on I want to say he wasn't firing all 8 cylinders. That's not what he said. He's just running a little behind because he didn't have any alcohol or peyote.
Yeah, he was out of peyote.
He's out of peyote.
Peyote
and we remember from the earlier on,
hard to do sober, and he ran out of peyote.
Yes, and then remember early on in book club,
when he decided to quit drinking.
We learned that he I don't know if he did acid too or one time, or he did alternative hallucination stuff. But hallucinogenics.
Those are bad things. People.
Yeah, I don't know if he was condoning it or what, but he did it. So anyway, I don't want to.
He also participated in orgies when he was in World War II. That was weird.
Well, maybe that's part of the hallucinogens. Yeah.
Hallucinogens.
Yeah, he did do orgies a lot.
Okay, back on track.
All right.
Back on track, because we really only have a couple of minutes to wrap this up.
Oh my God, I've been going like crazy with it.
So if you've got things that you want to talk about, folks, go ahead and let us know.
John DeLorean, page 99 on the big book, 422 on the small book. Again, working with the rear engine Corvette. And then John DeLorean was real influential. There's the hot vapor engine was sold many times. Deals were made many times with GM, Ford. We brought up in one of the unboxing, in fact, we're unboxing stuff, and there's the boxes of the Ford, and it's a Ford Tempo, 2.5 Ford Tempo. And remember, the Ford Tempo had a high squirrel, and Smokey had the patented high squirrel piston. So don't know, that car I've never found. It was only a story because Smokey says they did that, but then all of a sudden we open up this box, and lo and behold, there's Ford Tempo stuff. And I think it's the majority of the stuff to build probably hot vapor. A lot of some jigs and a lot of the parts. So maybe he pulled the parts off, and then there goes the car and there goes the engine, because every manufacturer was pretty much trying to just steal the technology. So he would pull the engine and then they would crush the car. The Plymouth that we have wasn't crushed because it was sold to Smokey for $1.
They didn't want the liability.
Yeah, we figured they didn't want the liability. They sold to him for $1. Smokey did pull the engine out, and then the car got sold at auction. We think at auction, Trish believes it was sold. You know how Smokey would sell stuff out of a shop too. So the car was sold with a I don't know about original, because it's a no miles, brand new 2.2 engine back in the car, kept a hot vapor engine, and then there went the car. Years later, another thing that I wanted to do a rebuttal video, but I'm here now on this video that just came out about my hot vapor and about the pistons, was that I recently acquired these. No, I we
got the engine before we got the car.
We got the way before we got the car, yeah. And since high school, I wasn't in high school. I was like this, and I had a hot rod magazine or a circle track magazine, and I was doing, research. That's all I did. When me and Shop Mom met, one of the things that I knew that she was the one. She was at the racetrack, and then when we started to date, I had the circle track magazine every month. One came. She's English, language. Whatever. Yeah, she's just, the most intelligent person in English language. I wanted her to read Smokey's writings, because he was so funny and yet very intelligent, and the way he answered people on Circle Track magazine, and the way he answered stuff, I just thought, oh, check out Smokey Yunick, you know. And she was bit. She's like, oh, this is great. So when we dated, we would, whenever the magazine would come out, it may sound weird, but we would get a hotel room. I'd call, and, you know, we didn't have, you know, we didn't have cell phones. It was a regular old phone.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was, the new Circle Track is out. We used to have a thing, you know, the phone book is out. The phone book is out. You have to go to Steve Martin, the jerk, to get that one. But it'd be the, you know, the new phone book is out, which meant the new Circle Track was out. And then I would call her and tell her what hotel room. So
Bottle of wine,
go get a room,
pizza.
and I get the magazine. Go get the room. She'd get a bottle of wine and pizza or cheese and breads, and she was trying to introduce me into the sophisticated person, whatever, but into wine, and so she would bring different fruits and different, like a pizza, breads, and stuff.
We're too much to
Oh,
tell.
it was great. That she would bring that to teach me how to pair wines and stuff, and then I would sit back with a glass of wine and fruit and everything, and she would read, and literally many times. That's all we did in the hotel room, really.
Okay, so
go ahead.
Bill Miller wants to know, how do you know that you got the best hot vapor engine? He had several, and he would just sit one to the side and build another, especially if it wasn't working like he wanted. Well, the reality of it is we have 5 hot vapor engines, and there's no way to know which one is the best because we don't have access to all of them, but we're really blessed to have what we do, and glad that y'all are here to help us enjoy this.
Yes, and you're exactly right. You're exactly right, but in his books, he actually writes that the Plymouth 2.2 was the most refined, ready to go into production.
And Dino Days, if you on YouTube, if you guys go to Dino Days, just, you know, on your search
Type in
engine,
Smokey Yunick Dino Days.
and you can see Smokey driving this little Plymouth that we have here now with that little hot vapor engine.
There's some burnouts
Smoke
going
in the
on.
tires.
When you first start, you type in Smokey Yunick Dino Days. It's going to be it's a group from Sweden that come. They're having a problem with the reverse cool LT1, which Smokey Yunick was involved with the reverse cool. I think it's his idea. But anyway, so at first, don't get, you know, like, well, this isn't about Smokey Yunick. It's a guy, and you see them, they're in a dyno, and they're having problems with the oil pressure, and then they're having problems with this and that, and then they say, you know, we got to call Smokey Yunick.
Because they're from a hot rod group in Sweden.
In Sweden, yes. So they came along with a photographer and the Impala to Daytona Beach, Florida. So then that's where we see the hot vapor engine. So that's when we see the Plymouth. That's when we see it running. I actually used that video originally to get the car put back together again. I would freeze frame, get a picture, and then we actually got hold of the actual photographer and the people that were doing the articles.
That's what Faye's saying right now. It's in a video that I made with Danny. I reached out to the guy that made the video and asked his permission to repost it, and he gave me permission, so check out that video. It's her video, you guys, so check it out.
Yes.
Okay,
So-
now Kay
okay,
is
so-
asking, can you post a link, Faye?
Okay.
See what you got yourself into?
There you go, Faye. You gotta post the link now. So because you know me, I always say I will and I can't. But so how do we know we have the most refined one? Well, there's one engine that no one knew what engine this was, and at one time, Parker Hannafin was going to purchase all of these and reverse engineer them in Sweden. Fortunately, thanks to Tony, they stayed in America. And then I got these hot vapor engines. We won't go about how I got them, and it keeps going in there more and more. But this one engine is different than the rest. So while I think, or because the Smokey says that the 2.2 is ready to go, you remember he was working with Howard Crane of Crane Cams, and they were going to make a kit. After GM, Ford, Chrysler, all this, DeLorean gets popped, that deal is gone. After all these deals are gone, he's working with Crane to make a kit. And they're going to sell these kits. One of the first kits is going to be the 2.2 Chrysler and the 2.5 Chevy. So we have another engine, which out of all of them, the valve cover has casted in the valve cover hot vapor And we
It's HVC.
HVC.
Hot vapor cycle.
So we think it's hot vapor cycle. It's a hot vapor
Which
combustion.
in the book, if you guys are doing the reading, you see that he actually refers to the hot vapor cycle.
In this chapter, yes, as we're going to, he refers to the hot vapor cycle. This valve cover has it right on it. Okay, so before we leave, because we only have 4 minutes left, what do we say? That Smokey was working in the 80s with GM again to do an S10. Okay, so I do have, Tony put the original Fiero engine that was in the Fiero, the GM 2.5, in a clone 84 Fiero, drove it for 2 years, then donated the car to Don Garlis. It's in a Don Garlis museum, so if you go into this section of Smokey Unique, there's a hot vapor car there with the original engine. Okay, just like that engine, he just dusted it off and put it in the car. We got the Dodge engine. So it had a little more tubings that were rotted and corroded. It had to do a little bit of repair, but didn't get too crazy on it. I wanted to put it on the dyno, but it's really historic. You want to blow it up on the dyno, trying to prove that he knew what he was doing? No, it is going on the dyno. But and it is what it is. But so it's back in the car. It's back in the car. It's ready for some road testing. It's ready for the dyno, and that's next. But that being said, this 1.8 engine a little bit different. Because what's the difference of the 1.8 and the 2.2? They're aluminum cylinder headed as opposed to cast iron cylinder headed. I even have brand new cylinder heads that Smokey had in these boxes that I got unboxing stuff. Brand new, a 1.8 GM cylinder head. So we're fast forwarding, almost done. In Mexico, they still produce the S10. They may call it the Colorado. I don't know exactly what they call it in Mexico, but they're still doing an awesome looking S10. So I started pulling up pictures on it, and wow, on the valve cover, it doesn't have hot vapor cycle, HVC, it has HCV. What does that mean? Clues or not clues, but we know he's working on more than one engine. He was working with them in the 80s. They say that he didn't want to put fuel injection and carburetors on it. I have found pictures of Smokey standing next to this engine in his shop, in his dyno. It has 4 coil packs and it's fuel injected, and it has an aluminum cylinder head. So I believe that was the one for the modern S10. Also, we have jigs where he made all the parts. I pulled out a jig the other day because I just, that's all I want to do every day, just to go through his stuff. And the coolant tube doesn't fit the engine that I have. But Smokey wrote notes on everything, and he used stamps. So, the stamps are all, it's written because he put in one at a time. And it says GM 2.5. It's a GM 2.5 hot vapor engine that I have. But the coolant tube that this jig is for isn't the coolant tube that's on this motor. What does that mean? This 2.5 may have been for an S10. It could have been for a different vehicle, but it is a 2.5 hot vapor engine. Fast forward, we have an S10. I don't really want to put that motor together and put it in the S10 because everybody's going to go, you got another one of his engines running and put it in an S10, big deal.
Big deal.
So what we're going to do is pull the 4-cylinder. I bought an S10, Shop Mom bought an S10, we got an S10. That's a 4-cylinder, 5-speed S10. So it's the right platform to play with. And what we're going to do is make a modern hot vapor engine. Ours is going to be fuel injected, and it's going to be modern. It's going to have a roller cam. It's going to have synthetic oils. It's going to be modern. His engines, not a one of them had a roller cam. So we can gain right there, and they're all carbureted. There's nothing wrong with carbureted. One of the things that in the article was on vaporizing fuel and how the carburetor isn't very good to atomize fuel. Well, wrong. There's another reason, but it's not that.
Okay, that article also thought it was a turbocharger.
They said it was turbocharged, and we know
he's not creating boost.
And we know it's a homogenized. So I think, I don't know if unless
We're
Bob,
really going over on time.
unless Bob wants to keep going here, I think I'm going to, I'm going to suggest it out loud. That's the way I do.
You can suggest it out loud. I'm going to say that the reading is going to continue, at least for me, and we'll probably do 25 pages just like the last time. I'm not looking through it to see where that ends up. More or less, guys, the rest of y'all aren't reading this anyway.
Yeah, so just...
But our next meeting will be on the 16th, Friday the 16th
Friday the 16th.
of May.
Are you gonna remember that? Well, Shop Mom will. For Friday the 16th. Faye, watch Friday the 16th. But that's just a date. She picked it. That's it. So we'll keep on the reading. We'll go 25 pages from where we left off. We left off.
Which may or may not work out to be the end of a chapter.
Yes, on we left off on this book. Here is 108 on this book, which are identical except that one's more of a pocket size book. And
How is that
it
pocket
has
size?
it has a little bit less. Well,
How big
if
are
you're
your
on if you're on a plane or something, you can read this as opposed to these big books. And it has a little bit less photos in this book. But we also found the last the last time we were reading that there was some pictures in here that weren't in this book. So, but it's the same words. It's the same words. So,
Actually, no, we did notice that they did correct some of the typos from the earlier versions. The hard copy is different from that softbound
yes,
one.
the original hard copy I have is a little bit different than this copy. I have the original numbers matching set. So there's a little bit of difference. It's all the same story, but yes.
Okay.
So, okay.
But guys, thanks so much for participating. We miss all y'all. Faye made a comment earlier, people are the worst. Our peeps are some of the best, and we really appreciate you guys being here. And,
Yes.
And yeah, it'll be, Faye will be in Houston for super training, so we'll miss you, Faye, again. But
If anybody wants one of these, we have some actual, I think they're on Kodak paper. They are on Kodak paper. I think we have 4 or 5 of their signed original book club photos that we took years ago when we started book club, and it was just a whim. So
Torcy was here.
oh, so hey Torcy. So if anybody wants an autographed copy, probably want one with Faye without me in it. That you have to ask Faye. But we do have
We have
4 or
some,
5 of
yeah,
these.
and I have stamps. I have envelopes, you guys.
Yes.
Just leave a comment.
Leave a comment
like.
that you want. Leave a like. Subscribe. Come on. I try to do better on notification. I think I just figured it out today. Except I didn't figure out the vertical or horizontal. How do y'all see it? I know that there's a lot of controversy that everybody uses a phone now.
It doesn't matter. Piston assembly grease. Folks.
Yes, Piston assembly grease. Do most people use a phone or the TV? So okay, I think we're done. Piston assembly grease, everybody.
See y'all on the 16th.
We'll see you on the 16th. Go read a book. Read this book. And remember, Smokey does belong.
Any book. Read
Any
a
book.
book.
Read it. Read any book. All right. Happy Friday. Happy Good Friday. Happy Easter. Bye.